Hello PLP Geometry. Welcome to video 9 of Unit 1, covering some very important special angle pairs. So we are again still in Unit 1, talking about the intro to geometry. And again, the good thing about today is that you've actually seen these before. It's been a couple years. You did this in 8th grade. I'm telling you, I know you did. So have faith that you have some prior knowledge and you can identify these things. So again, video number 9, we're talking about special angle pairs. Now again, these are going to be used so often this year, so it's very important that you try to do your best to get these ideas remembered. So the first pair we're going to talk about are what we call vertical angles. Vertical angles. And our definition for vertical angles are opposite angles, I'll use the angles symbol, opposite angles formed when two lines intersect. So I'm going to draw a picture of two lines intersecting. So let's draw a line like this, line L, call it L, right? And let's draw a line like this, line M. So these two lines are not perpendicular, they just intersect, right? They cross. What happens is we create four angles at this intersection, right? I'm going to label them with numbers. So we call this angle 1, call this angle 2, call this angle 3, and call this angle 4. And what we've done is we've created two pairs of vertical angles. So angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Again, they are angles opposite of each other formed when two lines intersect. Same thing with angle 3 and angle 4. They are vertical angles. They are opposite of each other at that intersection. Now I'm going to change colors for this special announcement here. One thing to remember about vertical angles, this is very important, is that vertical angles are, and I won't use the symbol, I use the word are, congruent. This is very, very, very important to remember, that vertical angles are congruent. So from these two statements, I know that angle 1, one arc mark, is going to be congruent to angle 2, one arc mark. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. I also know that angle 3, three arc marks, is congruent to angle 4, sorry, 2 arc marks, is congruent to angle 4, 2 arc marks. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. So being able to identify vertical angles in a picture is important, and they're congruent to each other. Okay, so you use this one a lot. All right, next. Another type of angle pair that I know you've seen before are what we call complementary angles. So complementary angles. So when we look at complementary angles, these are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. And some of you might not know this word sum, so when you think of sum, think of the operation addition, right? We're adding. Okay? Now, there are two pictures that I'm going to draw for complementary angles. So the first picture is going to be an example of non-adjacent complementary angles. Basically, non-adjacent means they're not touching, okay? So say that I have one angle out in space. Let's draw this angle. I'm going to draw it kind of acute. Let's say that that's a 30-degree angle. Well, then I need a 60-degree angle somewhere because 30 and 60 make 90. So over here, let's draw a little bit bigger acute angle, right? And again, that might not be exactly 60. I'm estimating, but let's call that 60 degrees. These two non-adjacent angles are complementary because 30 plus 60 equals 90. Okay, let me switch colors here, purple, and let's go with two angles that are adjacent. Now, these two angles must be next to each other, right? They must be touching. They must be sharing a side and a vertex. So here's what I'm going to do. If you think of 90 degrees, I hope you're thinking of a right angle. So I'm actually going to start with a right angle. So I know that this angle is a right angle because there's the right angle box. And now if I draw a ray somewhere random, I don't want to draw an angle bisector. Don't draw it down. Just draw it somewhere random. I'm going to draw it right up here. So now I've created two angles inside this right angle that share this side. So they share the side right there. I'm going to call this angle 1. I'm going to call that angle 2. I don't know anything about the individual angles 1 and 2's measure, but because they're adjacent and because of that right angle box, I know that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 has to be 90 degrees. I know that. And again, that's because 90 degrees is a right angle. This one, you're going to deal with a lot more than the other one, right? The adjacent one. Okay, but to be honest, of the three angle pairs I talk about in this video, complementary is the least important. Okay, last angle pair here, and these are very important, and we're talking about supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. Okay, again, let's talk about our two situations. So our first one is going to be our non-adjacent. I'm going to abbreviate adjacent ADJ example. So now I need two angles whose sum is 180. So I'm going to actually draw that 60-degree angle again that I used last time. And now I need a second angle that's going to have a sum of 180 with that 60-degree angle. So it's going to be an obtuse angle like that. Sure. And I'm going to call that 120. And I know that these two angles that are not touching are supplementary because 60 and 120 make 180. Okay, and now let's change colors for our adjacent example. So for the adjacent example, again, we need two angles whose sum is 180. If you think about 180 degrees, I hope you're thinking about a straight angle. So a straight angle looks like a line. So there is my straight angle that is 180 degrees. I'm going to take some point on that line, on that straight angle, put a point there, and I'm going to draw a ray going up, not straight up, because that'd be a bisector. I don't want to do that. Let's just go off here. And I've created two angles, angle 1 and angle 2. Again, I don't know the individual measures of those two angles, but I do know based off this picture that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180. So when you see this kind of picture of a line in a problem with a ray going up off of it, you can assume that those two angles add to 180. This adjacent situation is very important, and it actually has its own name. Okay? And its own name, I'm going to put down here, is called a linear pair. we'll put a big box around that because it's super important. A linear pair. A linear pair is two angles who form a line together. So again, in this picture, these two angles share that side, and together they form this line, this straight angle. So linear pairs are always supplementary. So you can assume that based off a picture, if I see a line and I see that ray going off it, those two angles are going to be supplementary. All right, so these special angle pairs, vertical angles, very important. Supplementary angles, especially linear pairs, very important. Complementary, not so much. Okay. All right, thanks for watching and good luck on your practice of these special angle pairs.